welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. You just get to get an outtake because I've made too many tests already that I forgot to start recording on the audio when I was recording here, and I'll just keep going. But I'm glad to be here today. I'm going to talk to you about mindfulness and mindlessness, more of the mindlessness, but just a comparison. When I think of mindfulness, from the yoga side of it, the the way that it's used for being in the moment, that is taking each moment, taking each breath, thinking of what you're doing and being in control. And that doesn't happen that often. It's usually in a controlled setting that happens, or it's because you've practiced enough in a controlled setting, or you're just super mindful. You know that whatever you're going to do is important, so you're thinking about it. So mindfulness, when I look up the definition, says it's a mental practice that involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment. Well, that's, if you're going to a meditation or a yoga class, it's being fully aware of one's thoughts, feelings, body sensations, and surroundings. Again, something that I would teach in a yoga class, maybe not thoroughly, maybe in bits and bits. I find that people don't want you to talk too much, at least when I teach, I find that. And so I talk about it a little bit. I'm sorry if this chair is noisy, but it's just going to be what it is because I have to adjust myself here. But it's basically observing your thoughts, not worrying about what you're thinking, just deciding if you want to stay with that thought process or if you want to send those thoughts away so that you're not troubled with them anymore. Or if it's distracting or something. Let's say you're having a conversation with a friend and you really want to be in the moment. You want to be present with that friend, give them the attention, and also enjoy being with them. But if you're thinking about what you need to be doing next, or if you're thinking about being uncomfortable in your chair, like I just was, then it's distracting me from actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's not mindfulness. Well, it is mindfulness. If you notice I was distracted, I'm not paying attention to my friend, my mind just wandered. And so if you're mindful, you're noticing what's going on in your mind. You're noticing what's going on around you in your body. You can pay attention to anything you want. It doesn't have to just be what's in your mind. It might be, I'm going to just listen for every sound that I can listen to and just enjoy that. I'm at the beach. I want to hear the sound of the ocean and the seagulls and the pelicans or the children playing, whatever it is you hear. That's being mindful because you're paying attention to something and you're in control. The the other part of it that people might do if they want to have a more mindful moment to relax, that has other things. But the mindfulness definition in the newer age, I guess, world is that whole thing of not judging, just noticing. But in real life, it can be applied to all kinds of things. It could be just noticing, I have this ache and pain in my body. I keep ignoring it, or I didn't even notice it was there. How long have I had a cut on my face? How long have I had a burn on my arm or whatever? I didn't even notice I got burned. What happened? How often do you not pay attention to what's going on? And then when you do, that is being mindful. So mindlessness is not paying attention, not noticing. And it was interesting looking up this definition, which somehow it disappeared from here. So let's look up mindlessness definition. It's a lack of awareness where a person acts without conscious thought. If if you can't see my face, I'm giving a little, oh, really? Because that is super, super common with ADHD, is to act without a conscious thought, is just to have an impulse, just to do something, just to have a sporadic idea that's not super conscious or regulated, I guess. But it can also just be being on autopilot. If you're driving a car and you're just on autopilot because you've driven on this road for who knows how many years, then that is not a mindful driving experience. It's mindless. Your brain has gone somewhere else. Thankfully, we know how to drive on autopilot and still notice the things that are important. Notice the gauges in the car, notice the stoplight, that kind of thing. But you might not be mindful of where you're actually headed. And then you start to become more mindful and you think, oh, wait a minute, where was I going? And am I going the right way? And then you come back to that present moment and you're mindful. Ever since I was mindful the other day of my mouth being dry and having a hard time making an S sound, I've noticed it more and more. Was it like that before? Maybe, maybe not, but I don't know. I don't know. The humidity has definitely dropped in Florida because of colder weather, maybe more heaters on in buildings, but I've even noticed it in my hot yoga classes because humidity makes you sweat more. It makes you feel hotter. And the last few times that I've taught, I haven't been very sweaty at all. Like the sweat dripping off your forehead that some people really love with hot yoga hasn't been happening. And one woman even came up and asked about the temperature. She just said, I'm not sweaty. Anyway, I think that's contributing to my mouth. And so sometimes mindfulness can actually be a distraction if you notice so much the present moment that you can't keep doing what you're doing. So I'm going to do my best, even if my S's don't come out right. But back to mindlessness. So it can be something that's actually a protection for our brains because if you're on autopilot, if you're going around your house doing things, your brain doesn't have to work as hard to think, and next I'm going to bring this foot up one step and then I'm going to bring one foot up the other step as you walk up a flight of stairs. You don't do that. You just walk on up the steps. If you trip and fall, you might become more mindful. If you're carrying a baby going down the stairs, I just did this with my grandson the other day. I was very mindful of every step because I can't go on autopilot. In a lot of things I can't because I am very, very accident prone as as a result of not noticing. And so that state of unawareness can be termed as mindless. So it's a pretty opposite end of mindfulness of where you're working very hard to pay attention to notice what's going on. And the contrast is just having no idea what's going on. You might have a slight idea, but for the most part, you're not noticing. And back to getting in accidents, having injuries. Sometimes it's not because of mindfulness. Sometimes it's caused by who knows what, something that's beyond your control. But if you are super accident prone with ADHD and it's frustrating, you have bumps and bruises. And right now I have a cut on my forehead and a bruise. And it used to be poked out a little bit. When you bunk your head, a lot of times it sticks out a little bit. But Friday, I was just cleaning up my house and I have a lot of yoga bolsters because I like a variety and I bought several, oh, as in dozens of yoga bolsters for different yoga classes that I've taught privately. But I also use them to watch movies at night. So when the whole family's here, everyone's grabbing their couch or their chair or whatever, I like to lie on the floor, get a blanket, and elevate my legs with the yoga bolsters. So my feet are up, my calves are supported, and it's just super comfy. But every time I clean up from it and we're all together, then I'm having to lug them back to my room or in here where I teach yoga. And so on Friday, I decided I'm going to be really clever. I'm going to save myself some time and effort and solve a problem at the same time because I have pushed one of our couches, our smaller couch, to where the back of it is toward the fireplace. And we have the fireplace pilot light off, so we can't possibly turn it on or anything. It's just a gas fireplace. And so we've had it that way because then we don't have to move the furniture around every time everyone comes to watch a movie. We have a projector and a big screen and stuff. So I decide just place a bolster behind the couch on each end, and then the couch won't push all the way against the fireplace. It'll give a little buffer, and it'll be really easy to take out every time I want to use them. So I put one on the left side of the couch, and I go to put one on the right side of the couch, which means I'm leaning forward a tiny bit. Well, probably a little more than a tiny bit, maybe a few feet. I'm leaning forward with my head, putting it down. And it wasn't an impulsive thing. It wasn't out of control. Like sometimes I'll just go, I should go here and just leap or run. The hyperactivity, energetic part of me tends to do that. It wasn't a big move, but it was enough of a move that the corner of the fireplace mantle and my forehead collided. And it hurt, and I just thought, "Why? Why, oh, why?" Because this isn't the first time that I've had an accident with that mantle. It's the first time it's happened going down. It's happened at walking into it once with the side of my eye. Thankfully, it's just the eyelid part or above the eyelid. What is that called? Under your eyebrow? I don't know, it'll come to me. Thankfully, there's a bone there, but that hurt really bad, and then another time I came up on it and cut my head because I was cleaning out the cabinet underneath it and stood up, and it was just right there. They shouldn't make them like that, in my opinion. So the other 2 injuries taught me to not have anything that I would be leaning over and getting. So I reorganized those cupboards, and then I also made the couch either so close to the fireplace or so far away that I had plenty of room to clear it without accidentally just walking by and running into it, because I tend to not clear my whole head space. Like, if my eyes can get past something, for the most part, the rest of my body isn't aware if it can or not. And it's just too many injuries. So the forehead, why? Why? Mindlessness, I guess. I wasn't I wasn't weighing it out and looking and thinking, if I lean over, well, my forehead hit this. But now I will be mindful. I will be extra mindful, just like I made precautions for the other things, but I also made another precaution. So it's an accommodation that I am making for my own disability here. It really is a disability. And I know some people either don't wanna call it that because they don't want to feel like there's something wrong with them, but there are a lot of people who don't wanna call it that because they don't believe it's even a thing. They think it's an excuse, they think you can control it, and maybe a lot of things, this is my little bandwagon or stand on the what is the soapbox thing? Sure, there are a lot of things that we can improve on our ability to do things with ADHD. But there are a ton of things that no matter how we try, how many accommodations we make, how many new methods we make, or it's going to happen again. Maybe in a different way, but it's going to happen again. I've broken my right foot 3 times in 3 different places, so it happened slightly differently, but really it was all the same thing. Stepping off of a step and landing on my foot wrong because of an uneven surface. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating, especially when you spend a lot of effort and a lot of mindful moments, seconds, minutes thinking, when I step off of this, my foot's going to land straight. When I do this, I need to pay attention. I need to pay attention. And yes, you can implement new mindful ways. You can implement new patterns where maybe you don't walk a certain way anymore. You can do all kinds of things. With the first accident, I was wearing Dansko shoes. Do you know what those are? They're kind of like a clog, and they are a little higher. So at first, I thought maybe if I was wearing a lower shoe, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had as much room to roll when I stepped on that stepping stone, not really noticing I was. So that was a mindlessness thing. But I stepped off, didn't see that I was stepping on the edge of the stepping stone. First fracture of my foot. So, whatever it is that you have that you're mindless about, if it leads to some disaster, because for me, an injury where you can't wear a shoe or walk or whatever for however long, that is a disaster. Maybe not in everyone's world, but in your own world, it can be. For your children, it can be if they're dependent on you, or if you need to drive somebody, any of that. Yes, we can do things to hopefully prevent it again. If you're forgetting things, you're missing appointments. How many times have you missed an appointment before you thought, I need to come up with a new method? For me, it hasn't always been the first time that I slip up, and especially with injuries, that I even thought it was a problem. Maybe I thought it was unusual, but I knew enough people, and now I know they have ADHD, but I knew enough people that did it too. I just thought some of us are like that. Who knows why? And understanding why is really helpful because it helps you see that maybe the improvements are going to be minimal. It's not always a sure thing that it'll end. And being more mindful is super helpful. I'd much rather have 3 foot fractures than 50. But what's important is that you know, you know yourself, you know your brain, you get to understand it better and realize things like whether you have ADHD or just a lot of ADHD ways. If this stems from even getting older, I mean, ADHD in my life anyway has increased. The parts that have been a problem have increased as I've gotten older. Maybe not for everyone, but a lot of the things that can happen with executive dysfunction can happen to elderly people. I'm not quite to the elderly part of my life yet, but I'm on my way. We're all on our way if we get to live long enough, right? So, understanding the way that your brain works or doesn't work, understanding the glitches when you aren't as mindful can be really helpful because then you can develop other methods, other systems, accommodations if you need to, so that you can minimize and maybe eliminate certain things from happening again. If you've forgotten appointments, if you've forgotten all kinds of things, how many things do you forget? Like you were going to text somebody back and then later that night you think, oh, I never did that. Or later that week you think, oh, I never did that. Whatever that is that you're missing that might be affecting a relationship, a job opportunity, your work, your family life. Sometimes the more drastic that is, then the more you realize I have to take care of this, especially if you have a financial mishap because of it. I saw that a woman on Reddit said, because they call it the ADHD tax, when you make a mistake with your ADHD, is this recording? Just a second, I can't tell. Oh yeah, it is. Sorry. My audio, I had it to where I couldn't see I had zoomed in too much. I couldn't tell if it was actually recording again or not. But anyway, back to this poor woman. My heart goes out to her as in this poor, and then how much it cost her too. I don't know that she's totally poor, but she went to pay her rent, and I can't remember if it was on Zelle. I don't think it was PayPal. I think it was through Zelle, through her bank account. And she went to pay her rent, saw the amount, clicked on the landlord, and it was something like $2,000. And then noticed that she'd accidentally paid her old landlord where she used to live, not where she lives now. So she wrote to the old landlord and asked for the money, said, I made a mistake. He didn't respond to her. She said he was a really horrible landlord when she rented from him. And now she didn't have the money for her current rent. But it was just a mindless mistake of going in there, clicking the amount, clicking the person to send it to that shows up. And sometimes you do those things without really thinking about it. One time I was at this sandwich place here, this deli, and it went to do tip. And for some reason, unless I'm in a restaurant, in a sit down restaurant, and it says, like 15%, 20%, I'll usually just choose one of those. But if it's a walk up counter, a lot of times I'll just like think, no, I want to choose. I don't want you to choose. Because sometimes they'll just have a really big percentage amount. And I think, well, maybe I want to pay 10%. I'm just walking up and getting a slice of pizza or something. And maybe that sounds stingy to some of you, but I just feel like everybody wants a tip all the time and I don't have all the money in the world. So I'm going to control my tip amount. So I go to buy this sandwich. And like if you're buying a $5 sandwich and it turns into $8 all of a sudden, it's quite an increase. If we increased everything, it's quite an increase. I know I'm trying to justify all this, but I know some people are just like, why can't people just tip more? But I have, everyone has their opinions or their methods or their reasons, right? So I go to pay my tip and I, click out, click custom, and I go to just press on the iPad 200 for $2. As soon as I go 200 send, as soon as I see the send, I see each zero was a double zero in their tip system, and I was giving $200 of a tip for a $5 sandwich. And I just went, "Oh, oh, no," and I could see the iPad doing swirl, 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 and I just went, "Ah," to the cashier, and I just said, Can you, cancel this and, refund it and do it over again? I just gave a $200 tip. I didn't mean to." And, I didn't know the zeros were double zeros, and that obviously could have happened to anybody, but I don't know that it's happened to anybody else there, and and they had to get the manager, and so I didn't lose my $198, but being mindful, now I look. Do I look? Yes. I look when I go to pay a tip. I look when I'm about to send, push the green button on my transaction or wherever I am, even the credit card transactions. Am I doing what I think I'm doing? And a little mistake like that can make me more mindful. A mistake like missing an appointment can make me think, one, I'll use an alarm now. I'll make sure I have an alarm set the night before for anything I need to do the next day. Or if you miss an appointment because you're late and it's a doctor's appointment, and now you have to pay $150 or whatever it is for that missed appointment, then you might think, from now on, I'm not going to schedule something else so close, or I'm not going to wait until 10 minutes before to get in the car when I know it takes 10 minutes to get there. I'm going to leave a half hour early. Even if it seems silly, even if it seems like I'm going to get there early and I could be getting stuff done at home. Sometimes we love to be productive and think that I can get four more things done if I don't leave us early. I can switch the laundry. I can put things away in the kitchen. I can, whatever it is. But a bad, a bad experience with something that you didn't time right, your time blindness, whatever it is, can make you more mindful for the next situation. So that's a different kind of mindfulness that I just wanted to talk about and explore today, because noticing what it is with you that may be making you do this, because you may not even have thought about it. For years, I never thought about why I get so many bumps and bruises. I knew that people said I dragged my feet when I walked. I had a few people say that, friends. Thank you. But I wasn't mindful of my feet. And I did trip sometimes just walking. I've tripped on my yoga mat sometimes while I'm teaching, just kind of stepping off of it because it's sticky. But I have to be mindful, lift up your foot, all that kind of stuff. And it can be crazy. It can be hard. Even sometimes the mindfulness can can actually trip you out a little more. I don't know if this has ever happened for you, but one time I was in this room cleaning it up, and it's where I teach yoga, and so a lot of times I'll move things out of the way from where the camera is. And one time I was cleaning, so I had a little bag, just a grocery bag, that I was putting trash in or something that I don't know how it built up in here, but anyway, I had, like paper towel or whatever it was. And so this little bag on the floor that had hardly anything in it, weighed nothing. I could blow on it, it would move. But I was going to walk out of the room, and because I become more mindful of how I step, as I started to step on it, I hesitated and thought, no, 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 you don't want to trip. Like you don't want to land on that and land wrong and sprain your ankle or something. So I did some hesitating, like lift the foot up and da da da. But the momentum of my body was still going forward, and I ended up landing on the top of my big toe. Another injury, another injury. So sometimes being mindful, I think slowing down was the little lesson I guess I didn't learn from that. But I think that's it for today. I'm gonna have to have a humidifier in here because I apologize if it's bugging you. But my mouth won't say S's smoothly. Ooh, that was good. I licked my lips twice, so so hopefully that wasn't loud for you. But thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being patient with my haphazardness and scatteredness at times. And I don't mind it, my friends. And actually, my friends who don't have ADHD have told me they don't mind it with me. But I know a lot of podcasters are very organized and very, very formal and structured, and things come out in a very logical way. For me, they might hop around, but it's how I can get my voice out there because I know that there are a lot of people that get frustrated with life with ADHD. And back to my bandwagon. Did I start that bandwagon? I know I had to pause here twice and I can't even remember why. I can't remember why. Who knows why? I've already forgotten. But yeah, there are people who think that what we have, everyone has it, is a little ADHD. It may be true that everyone has, or a lot of people have certain symptoms from ADHD. It doesn't mean that they have them to the degree that you do, or that you have as many. If they did, they could be diagnosed. Maybe they need to go look and see. Maybe they do have ADHD. Because if you didn't find out you had ADHD till you were a lot older, then you may have been like me, who never in the world, never in your life even considered that was something you had because I didn't know enough about it. There are probably a lot of people like that because a lot of people still call it ADD, and it hasn't been officially called as a medical diagnosis ADD since the 1990s, I think. Is it 90s or 87? I have to look it up. I know I've looked it up before on here, or I've had that information at my fingertips, putting on my glasses. I have the glare, but you'll just live with that, I'm sure. Diagnosis. Um, yeah, see, it doesn't even come up as that anymore. Okay, when last on DSM. So right now they're on the DSM-5, which is the diag, diagnostic criteria. Um, okay, history. Don't you hate it when you try to Google something and it's giving you, I think it's the AI that's doing it. Okay. Okay. It was the DSM-4 in 1994 that changed it from ADD and ADHD to ADHD, either hyperactive impulsive presentation, or sometimes people just say type, inattentive type, hyperactive impulsive type, or combined type. And sometimes people say hyperactivity, impulsivity, but that's what those two go together. So if you have a lot of the impulsive traits, if you don't know if you have combined or not, if you've been diagnosed for inattentive, but you think, you know what, I have a lot of impulsive traits too, go and look at the diagnostic criteria because you may have enough to, whether you go back in for a diagnosis, maybe you didn't share enough of your past, present, and well, not future, your past and presence. Having a hard time being in line is one of them. I actually made a new, I honestly, I forget sometimes the things that I make available to you, and I forgot to even tell you about this. Like, it could be something I work on for a month and then, forget that I have. I don't even know where it is, but I made an understanding ADHD guide. Let me see if I can find it in my downloads so I can even just understand what, what I wrote for you. ADHD ebook. Here it is. I mean, I don't know if it's technically an ebook. It's not very long, but is that just the cover? Where's the whole file? There's the cover, front page, PDF. That should be oh, here we go. Oh yeah, here it is. Hello, I'm Renee Allen. Inattentive ADHD, hyperactive impulsive ADHD, combined presentation. I know this is just an aside and it's adding on, but I just wanted to give you the brief. I have a page talking about ADHD, the attentive type, the hyperactive impulsive type, and you tend to talk more than others, than most, have lots of energy, act without thinking, share lots of details. Hello. Interrupt others, blurt out, answers comments. Some people might call it interrupting. You might just be calling it participating in the conversation. I have a very busy mind, get restless and wiggly. You have a hard time sitting still, waiting, standing in line, have a hard time not talking at certain times. There are times we can reel it in, but that is part of hyperactive impulsive. And a lot of times we think of hyperactive as the jumping up and down child. But if you're an adult and you cannot hear a good song without dancing in your car or moving, even in the movie theater, yeah, that could be it. And then the combined is simply the both of those kind. The hyperactive impulsive type and the inattentive type or presentation. And then I'm giving you my whole guide here, but there's more. There's two others, two less common ADHD subtypes. I did not know that. I did not know that. Because we often talk about the three presentations or the three types. I often talk about that. And I learned by digging a little deeper, there's two others. So I won't tell you what they are because they're not very common. And when you see them, you'll kind of just go, oh, it's more of a thing a doctor would write down. But maybe I'll make another podcast episode about it. Maybe I'll learn more about it before I do that and see how many people are actually diagnosed with either type 4 or type 5 or presentation 4 or 5. I also have some other common ADHD conditions because some aren't specifically right in the inattentive type or right, in that they can have crossovers for different reasons. Even just like the klutziness, the accident prone nature of it. It could be the impulsive, hyperactive of moving faster than you need to do or moving without thinking. But then there's also the distracted, the not paying attention, the autopilot, that kind of thing of not giving attention to it. And that fits into the inattentive type. So see how one result, one seemingly activity or action that other people could look at, unless you're going really fast, then maybe they would think you were going too fast, bumping into people when you're walking. But really, the awareness piece is huge because for me, it's just not even noticing where my shoulders are when I'm walking. And I think you really do need to give a wide load lane for myself. Like I need to realize you need this much space before you pass that person at Disney World or something. But I mean, I'm not the only person whose shoulders bump into somebody else. People have done it to me too, but I am extra, extra. I go out of my way. I'm extra understanding when they say something like, I'm so sorry. I always just say, oh, it doesn't matter at all. No problem. No problem. Because that is the story of my life. But anyway, go to my website. And I think I have this on just a page that you can just sign up for it. If I go to my page and I just go down a little bit, it's just at the bottom. I think I made it so it's at the bottom of every page. Nope, it's not on my podcast page. I need to put it there. Is it on my blog page? Did you know I have blog articles? No, it's not on that page either. Oh, it is. Listen while we explore my website. I'm giving you a guide. It's not on my yoga page. I have my yoga page in case you're interested in my yoga. But yeah, it's on at the bottom of most of the pages, especially the homepage, but it says download your free quick guide to ADHD, which is really called Understanding ADHD, a quick guide to ADHD. Anyway, yeah, there's ADHD in there twice, but it's smaller the second time. Oh my goodness, thank you for being a good friend to me because you're still here. If you're still here, you're my good friend. And I thank you for that. I appreciate you. I will be back. I'm helping a lot with grandchildren this week, so hopefully it won't be too sporadic, but I should be back in probably 2 days. But the impulsive part of me might do it tomorrow instead. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short, the silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.